Hi, I'm Paul Offord, M0PXO, and I have been messing around with a concept which has been dubbed microblogs. And I just wanted to produce this video to show you what I'd done and what I'd found and some additional thoughts on the subject. Now, I need to start by explaining that this isn't my idea. So this was the idea of Julian, OH8STN. He has a particular interest in emergency communications and self-sufficiency and things like that. And what he did was he produced a video where he quite rightly pointed out that in an emergency it could be that all of the social media platforms are not available. He also talked a bit about the control of the content of the social media platforms, and he was keen to explore ideas around using radio to distribute blogs, which could be useful to distribute information in an emergency. So the idea is that an amateur radio operator would create short blog posts and then store them on the file system on their own computer and make them available over the air. Now, it would be done, one of the mechanisms he proposed, and it's the one that I've explored, is the use of JS8Call to retrieve the blog information. So I've picked up on two particular areas that he outlined, which is being able to make a request to the what I've called the server. Now, I don't want you to get an idea that this is a big centralized system. It would still be decentralized with effectively peer-to-peer communication, but obviously someone's got to serve up the blogs. So if we consider the operator who's got the blogs on his computer as his computer being the server, then what we're looking at is sending requests to that server to list all the most recent blogs and then to actually retrieve the most any blog actually by some form of ID, and I've used a simple numbering system. The model should be decentralized, as I mentioned, and that means that anyone can serve up microblogs. It should work without the internet being available, so in an emergency you could assume that maybe internet access was no longer available. He also proposed the ability to request blogs from specific stations, so a list of blogs from specific stations, or an all-call type broadcast out to any servers that may be able to serve up microblogs. I think there's an issue with the all-call version, but I'll talk about that a bit later. He also suggested that this be done by extending the capability of JS8Call rather than writing a whole new piece of software, and I certainly think that's a great idea, because obviously building up this capability, you don't want to have to worry about all of the decoding and all of the other bits and pieces that go with JS8Call. Now, my test setup, and I've called it a proof of concept. It's a sort of mini proof of concept because it's not comprehensive. It probably needs to be, have a bit more work done on it. But my configuration is JS8Call running on a laptop. That's running on my desktop machine. Talking through an ICOM 7200. I've just got this feeding into a dummy load, which you'll see in a second, and then hopping across to a KX3. Again, we've got JS8Call, and then above this we've got the server program, if you like, that's using the JS8Call API. Now, there's an API available in JS8Call that's accessible via UDP or TCP. I'm using TCP. I believe it would work equally well with UDP, but that's the fine detail which I don't think we need to get into. The server software, this little bit of Python code, is running on the same machine as the machine running JS8Call. In theory, they wouldn't have to be the same machine actually, but in my case, I'm running them all on the same machine. Okay, at that point, I think we start to look at a bit more at the configuration, and then I'll walk through the tests that I've conducted and what I've found. So let's just show that there's no problem with us using this machine in the normal way, even while the Python code is running. So we'll come into here. What we'll do is we'll message 2E0FGO and ask for a signal report. And the other machine is now sending back the signal report of +12. We'll just wait for that to arrive. And you can see there's the signal report. I'm not quite sure why we've got it twice, but anyway. And then you can see that there's nothing in the Python code. It's still running. It's basically ignored that message. Now the format of messages that I've defined for the microblog mechanism, they all start with MB dot. So if I can get the right keyboard, MB dot, and then what we're going to do is we'll do a list command, and then we'll do greater than post number 21. Now I need to direct this to the correct place, so M0PXO. The two call signs I'm using, I mean, bearing in mind that I'm only feeding this into a dummy load anyway, but these are both my call signs. One is my intermediate class call sign and the other one is my full class call sign, which I take it is legal for me to do that because both are still registered with Ofcom and both appear on my QRZ profile, so should be okay. Anyway, I digress. Let's go on with this. Okay, so we're now sending the, or about to send the command, and if we flip round and look at the Python code running, not quite sent the whole thing yet. Okay, yeah, there you can see. So it's received the command and then it's done a listing of the microblogs that are available. Now the microblogs are just in a specific directory. I've tried to follow the idea that Julian proposed. So you can see microblog posts, and what it's basically doing is it's listing the file names. That's what gives us the headings and the reference numbers for the blogs. Okay, so we'll wait for that to complete. Actually, while that's completing, let's have a look inside one of the blogs. I'm going to look at this one here, number 25. So just some form of heading line and then the rest of the text. Now you'll notice it's got new lines in it. What I've found is that although I believe JS8Call version 2 should support new line characters, it's a bit flaky, as we'll see. Sometimes it works fine, other times on the receiving end in the message window the message appears to be corrupt. So this listing that we are seeing here on the requester end, that's got new line characters in it, and you can see that's all worked fine. Right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually get the microblog. If I do this, it will just automatically direct it to the location of the microblog. MB get 25. And the whole idea here is this is meant as a proof of concept and a way of discovering some of the problems that are likely to occur. So problems that I've realized at the moment, the AnyCall sort of broadcast asking for blog updates using the AnyCall address. You could do it, but the problem is you're going to want to put some form of reference to say you want any call after a certain time or date or number, and of course that number's not going to be equal across all of the stations that are going to respond. And if you use a date and time, they're not going to be synchronized across all of them, because you're going to have got, you know, listings of the blogs at different times, so that's not going to work well. And the thing I'm trying to make sure we avoid is you don't want to have to maintain any form of context information on the server end, because that is going to end up meaning you're going to have a lot of admin type work. So I'm trying to avoid that as well, so that needs more thought. The other problem is that, of course, all the time it's sending these microblogs, it's occupying the radio of the station that's sending it. And if you had a lot of people making lots of requests, the radio is probably going to be totally jammed up. So I think some thought has to be put into that. And if you did a complete listing of all microblogs, and there are, say, 1,000 of them, that would take forever to transmit. So you're probably going to have to put a limit on the number of microblogs you're prepared to send, you know, in the listing. You can see here where it's gone wrong. So you see it's got "and mission specialist Sultan," that should be after here. So I don't know what's happening. If I take all the new line characters out, it doesn't seem to have any problems. It, as probably as you'd expect, it just transmits them normally. So there's something wrong with the way new line characters are being processed in this message box. So the interesting thing here is, just to show you how random this corruption is, I did this same test just before I started to record this video, and it worked perfectly. But this doesn't surprise me, because I've been getting problems like this all along, that they sort of get jumbled up if you've got new line characters in the message. Now, what I can do, and I do sometimes actually, is modify. I've got just a single line of code. In fact, I can show it to you, where I modify the code so that it removes new line characters. So it's this thing here that I've commented out. So I replace all new line characters with a space, and then it works perfectly okay. But of course, you don't get it formatted on the screen the way that you're seeing it attempt to do there. So, in summary, the way to achieve the integration with a microblog type of service, or the way I've done it, is using the TCP API of JS8Call. And there are just a couple of very simple command verbs to get it to work. AnyCall listings are going to be problematic because of problems with synchronization of dates. You know, if I get some messages from some stations on a certain date and some of them on another date, and then I say, okay, send me everything that you've had since January 20th, it's likely that I'm not going to get precisely everything that I expect. I think actually using dates could be a way around this. It's certainly, there's no problem with using dates. I could equally replace the thing here that says 25. I could easily do, say, MB. Whoops, let's get the correct keyboard. I could easily do MB get greater than 2023 01 20. That's probably another thing that I think for international, to make this work internationally, you're going to have to use ISO dates. Otherwise, there's going to be all the bit about, using European format dates versus American format dates, and I think probably also you're going to have to use, the Zulu time zone, UTC, GMT, whatever you want to call it. So I think that would have to be used. Obviously, using GMT as your reference time is probably what every ham around the world does anyway. So that's not going to be a problem. The final thing is that as I said earlier, you've got to bear in mind that the listings of the blogs, such as these listings you see here, and then the sending of the blog itself, each of those occupies the radio for 2 or 3 minutes. And if you had a busy station where you were getting a lot of requests for microblogs, I could see how that could be a bit of a problem. But I guess, that's all part of it, isn't it? I guess that's just got to be considered. It does raise the question about whether it might be a good idea when someone requests microblog 25 and say 30 stations hear it being sent, should those 30 stations cache the microblog? That, I think, is certainly something that should be considered. If the other stations are active anyway, it does mean that rather than just using this command interface, we'd have to build a piece of client code. I don't think that would be terrifically difficult, but it means that you'd have to have some client code that formulated the request for you and also, cached any of these messages that it sees. And I guess if we do that, then these messages would have to start in a standard way. I've been starting them all with the word microblog, and maybe that would be the thing that you do to flag to all of the clients who are interested that this is a microblog and you should cache it if you can. Okay, that's a lot, isn't it? I hope that all makes sense, but I'm still going to mess around with this. I'd really like to fix this new line issue, or get the the author of KN4CRD, get him to try and fix the new line issue, so that works correctly. But this has got merits. It does seem to work. Oh, there's one further thing that I hadn't mentioned. There is a question about whether we're breaking the rules here, because if you were to run, say, the server side of this on your station, on your laptop, and you're not in attendance, as I understand it, by Radio Society of Great Britain rules, I believe you're breaking the rules, because you're not supposed to respond when there's not someone in attendance. It does make you wonder about things like signal reports that we see here, which and also about the use of FT8, I guess, because FT8 is you don't need to be in attendance for that. So there's some I don't know whether it's legality, but there are some policy things to be considered here as well. Okay, I hope you found that interesting, and I'd love to get your feedback, so please do send me anything. And Julian, if you're watching this, I'd really appreciate your feedback on this. That would be good.